Hi, everybody. My name is Sean Bouchard, and this is a play-by-play special secret bonus edition Mass Effect stream. I have not played Mass Effect in 2 weeks, because I've been on vacation, and I think at the end of the last one we killed some sort of a giant plant, and that means it's time to talk to the crew, because the way that this game works is between each of the sort of like major mission plot events, relationships with all of the crew members progress. All of the sort of like major crew members. So I don't think like Presley, I think he just says the same thing all the time.
Anderson, I'm glad it's you.
I guess he says something different after you. Oh, interesting.
We're all on the same team here, Presley.
With all due respect,
so I haven't talked to him since we took over the ship.
How that turned out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in charge here, Presley. I decide if we have non-humans on this vessel.
Yes, ma'am. Understood, ma'am.
Good job, one opinionated.
Speak freely, Presley.
What's the deal, Presley?
I want to know if you have a problem with non-humans.
What's going on?
It's not that, Commander. Humanity has always handled its own problems. Saren attacked one of our colonies. We should be the ones to stop him. We don't need their help.
Some people think asking for help is a sign of weakness. That's just being stupid and stubborn. No matter how strong you are, allies can make you stronger.
I guess so. Maybe I'm just stuck in the old ways of thinking. But don't worry, Commander. This won't be a problem.
Carry on, Presley.
Yes, ma'am.
Interesting. I mean, it's an interesting sort of person who could admit, like, yeah, I'm kind of a racist, but I understand that that's an unacceptable way to be, and so I'm not going to let it interfere with my job. I feel like that's... I don't know. I wonder... so we're going to go talk to Ashley, and Ashley is also a space racist, and I'll be curious if she sort of acts the same way. So, in the same way...
Yes, Commander? Is there something you need?
Chakwas, I don't think really... Yeah, no, whatever. I'm not even going to talk to her.
Goodbye,
She doesn't... our relationship with her doesn't progress in this game. We got to go, like, game to game to really get some Chakwas love. But, this is going to be, like, a whole new thing.
Are you coming to check up on me?
You look much better. How are you feeling?
Dr. Chakwas assures me I am going to be fine. I was impressed with her knowledge of Asari physiology.
I should go.
Wait, shit, that's not what I meant to do. God damn it.
I get the feeling you want to ask me something, Commander.
I do.
We can pick up where we left off. You were telling me about your interest in the Protheans.
Right, we could pick up where we left off. That's exactly what's happening. That's this whole thing. This whole segment is going to be...
in the process. As I said, I am not used to dealing with people, especially humans. I did not really know much about your species when we first met, Shepard. I found it hard to take humanity seriously. Your kind always seemed so rushed and high-strung.
We don't have the luxury of time. And Asari can live for 1,000 years. We're lucky if we hit 150.
That is true.
At
first I thought
like
that
that
was
line.
a weakness of your species. After spending time with you and your crew, however, I think it may actually be an advantage. You humans are creatures of action. You pursue your goals with an almost indomitable determination. It is an admirable trait, but also an intimidating one.
Never renegade the lovers, one opinionated says. Is that true? I was gonna say Jack, but actually I think that you need to Paragon Jack. Huh. That's an interesting bit of procedural rhetoric, if that's actually the case. I mean, so as a player, I have a tendency to pretty much always paragon everything. But that might be right. Huh. Okay, I gotta think about that. It's more intuitive in 2, but Renegade in this game shoots down their advances. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's right. That says something pretty significant, though. I mean, like, the game goes out of its way to not make, like, a strong moral argument for Paragon over Renegade, right? Like, mechanically, Renegade gives you a balanced... I mean, it doesn't give you the same advantages, but it gives you a balanced set of advantages. You get, similar sorts of conversation options. In most, if not all, of the, like, really big conversations, where you try to persuade characters on important matters, you get both a Paragon and a Renegade option. I mean, Renegade, I feel like, can sometimes shut down some sort of ancillary quest paths, but it also maybe gets you more bigger rewards for quests. It's that kind of thing. So, the fact that the romances are starkly different from everything else. They say Paragon is better, at least for the purpose of progressing the romance, than Renegade. That's a pretty significant statement. I mean, I don't necessarily personally disagree with it, but I feel like it's something different than what the game sort of states generally. Huh. Interesting. All right.
You're scared of us?
Unfortunately, the rest of the galaxy sees humanity as something of a bully. You run over anyone in your path to get what you want. It is up to people like you to change their minds, Shepard.
So Jason asks, do you think maybe representing really abusive or at least unhealthy or negative romantic relationships felt irresponsible to the devs? I mean, that's entirely possible, but I think that the part of what the game does or attempts to do is, I feel like, specifically in contrast to Knights of the Old Republic, where Knights of the Old Republic was like, there's two ways that you can go about every conversation. You can either be light side, which is like noble and good, or you can be dark side, which is, not just selfish, but like evil. And so Mass Effect was very much a reaction to that game, to that system, and it was sort of saying, Paragon and Renegade are not good and evil. Paragon and Renegade are two ways of accomplishing a goal. Like, they're two attitudes towards accomplishing a goal. And Paragon is like a very diplomatic attitude, and Renegade is a very practical attitude. And I think that you could create a romantic relationship where a practical approach or an approach that values honesty over, saving face or saving feelings, like those kinds of things could be valued in a relationship, depending on the relationship. And those would be Renegade qualities. So a Renegade relationship, I don't think necessarily has to be abusive. And I think that's where the choice comes in, right? Like, I can totally understand if the devs said, like, oh, we can't really sort of promote abusive relationships. That makes sense, but they could easily have created, I think, like, really not objectionable relationships that fit the Renegade paradigm, and they decided not to do that. Okay. Oh god, Dr. Darkheart is bringing in Jade Empire, which is such a, underappreciated game. It was, I think, BioWare's first original property, and it didn't do nearly as well as Mass Effect. Not because it's not a good game. I think for a variety of reasons. Some of it has to do with marketing, and some of it has to do with theming. But for that reason, it's not as well known. Okay.
Why me?
There is a reason the Council chose you to become a Spectre. They saw something special in you. The best of what humanity has to offer. I looked into your history. I know what you did during the Blitz. It was a remarkable display of courage and heroism.
Why are you so interested in me?
I wanted to know more about you. To understand what made you into the woman you are. There is something compelling about you, Shepard.
Are you sure you're interested in me? Or is it my visions of the Protheans?
Let's get to the bottom of this.
Your connection to the Protheans had something to do with my initial interest, but it has grown beyond that. You intrigue me, Shepard, but I was not sure if it was appropriate to act on my feelings. I thought there might already be a relationship between you and Lieutenant Alenko.
Kaiden, holy fuck.
The
No.
Lieutenant and I are just friends. Nothing more.
My mistake, then. I am not as adept at understanding human relationships as I thought. But what about us, Shepard?
Shit, I should have done the female option, because
about that
it would have
too?
been interesting to see what the game said about that. Yes, fuck yes, Liara. You are the best
And I knew you felt it too.
of the
But
three
does
options
not
that this
seem
game presents
rather
to me.
Strange? Why
I
do
don't know
feel
how
so
romantic
close
that
to-
is.
We have only known each other a short time. We are from two different species. We have almost nothing in common. This makes no sense.
We're from two different species, but your species is specifically attracted to different species.
Saren wants both of us dead. That's
Oh,
something.
god damn it. That's not what I
the
wanted
most
to say.
romantic reason, is it? You make it all sound so dangerous.
Ugh.
Don't tell me a little danger puts you off.
This is all a bit overwhelming. I am not used to this. You. I need some time.
Take all the time you need, Liara. I'll be here.
Thank you, Shepard. Let's just talk about something else for now.
That's I'm all about you, baby, because everyone else is fucking atrocious. That's my approach. Is that an incorrect approach? I feel like I've asked about these things, right?
Asari.
We were the first species to discover the Citadel. We were instrumental in forming the Council, and we always strive to be the voice of peaceful cooperation in galactic disputes. My people believe we are all part of a single galactic community. Each species contributes something to the greater whole. Although we seek to understand other species, it seems few of them seek to understand us. The galaxy is filled with rumors and misinformation about my people.
Like what?
Most of the inaccuracies are centered around our mating rituals. My species is monogendered. Male and female have no real meaning for us.
I think this is
We
part
still
of
require
what
a
we would have
partner
gotten
to
if we talked
reproduce.
about
This second parent, however, may be of any species and any gender.
the fact that she's female. That's disgusting.
I don't understand. Your species can mate with anyone?
Mating is not quite the proper term, not as you understand it. Physical contact may or may not be involved, but it is not an essential element of the union. The true connection is mental. Our physiology allows us to meld with other beings. We can touch the very depths.
But
of their
physical
minds.
contact
We
isn't
explore the
necessary
genetic
for
memory
that?
of their
That's
species.
interesting.
We share the most
I didn't
basic
realize
elements of
that,
their
because I
individual
think
and racial
it's
identities.
never
We then
presented
pass
in the
these
Mass Effect
traits onto our
series
daughters.
without a
It is how
physical
we learn to
component.
grow as a species and how we develop a greater understanding of other races.
What happens to your partner after the union?
Every relationship is different. Some unions are a single encounter with both parents parting ways afterwards. Others can be more long-term. Sometimes an Asari and her partner will stay together for many decades.
Do you know who Matriarch Benezia chose as her partner?
She rarely spoke of her partner. Though I know my father, if you want to use that term, was another Asari.
I feel like expressing skepticism at that is really super weird, because presumably the Asari have not always been a galaxy-spanning civilization, right? Like, they must come from a planet where they were... I mean, I guess they weren't necessarily the dominant or the only intelligent species. Actually,
I always needed another species to serve as one of the parents.
Think about it, Shepard. If we were not able to make our own species,
is this what she calls talking about something else? Yeah. Yep.
Union with our own kind is no longer common, not for the purposes of reproduction. Most Asari believe it weakens our species. Asari daughters inherit racial traits from the father species. If both parents are Asari, then nothing has been gained, or so conventional wisdom would hold. I am what is sometimes called a pureblood. Though no Asari would ever be cruel enough to say the word to my face, it is a great insult among my people. It is possible Benezia's partner was embarrassed by their union. She may have been too ashamed to publicly acknowledge me as her offspring.
Maybe she wanted to meet you but couldn't. Something could have happened to her. Maybe she passed away.
You might be right. I hope you are. But I have no way to know for sure. Benezia never spoke of her partner. Whatever happened, it caused her too much pain to dwell on it. She raised me by herself, though that is not uncommon. Many Asari raise their children alone, particularly if the father species is short-lived. Often the partner will pass on long before the child reaches maturity.
I should go.
Goodbye, Shepard.
I've done what I needed to do to progress that relationship further. And so now I feel like I can stop talking to her. That's the way that works, right? Once you hit the checkpoint of progressing the relationship, you can stop talking to the person. That is such an awkward moment every fucking time.
What's your opinion on the last mission?
I'm glad there aren't many aliens like the Thorian. I don't think my stomach could take it. One of my cousins has an agribusiness, and I was thinking of calling him. Maybe he can get some shipments into Pharaohs. I mean, now that they're cut off from the company.
Just trying to get a sense of where the crew's at. Thoughts?
Well, they know about the stonewalling you've had from the council.
And what do they think?
They're on your side. They're pissed about the resistance we're getting, especially from our side. I'll have a better handle on all of it when my head stops hurting. Another L2 flare-up.
Anything I can do?
No, Commander, it'll settle down. It's rough sometimes, but they spike higher than a lot of L3s. Except for you, of course. Besides, I fared a lot better than some after kinetics was through.
They spike higher than a lot of L3s except for you. That was... Presumably from context, that was a compliment about my abilities. Since I'm biotic, I must have implants, and presumably they're L3 implants, whereas his are previous generation, which are more painful, more erratic, but have a higher, like, power threshold. And he's saying, even though you have... Yeah, so it's weird. Okay, so even though you have implants that don't spike as high, that don't have as high a power threshold, you're still powerful. Am I biotic? I didn't think I was biotic. I thought I was tech combat. Right? Aren't I tech combat? I don't think I have biotics. Tell me about it.
You know the records about the biotic trading out on Jump Zero? They're all classified. Because the Alliance made mistakes. After first contact, Kinetics was set up to track Element Zero exposures and develop implants for humans. Once we had an embassy on the Citadel, Kinetics could bring in experts instead of taking it slow.
Could bring... What does that mean? What does experts mean?
The only experts would have to be aliens.
Dead on. Turians, actually. That's why Kinetics kept it a secret. They were afraid of what people back home would think, asking the Turians for help when we just fought a war with them.
Do Turians have biotic
The
ability?
Asari would have been more acceptable than the Turians.
Yes, but the company didn't go through the Citadel. It would have made Earth look weak, so they discreetly hired some Turian mercenaries.
Okay.
Is there some reason we couldn't learn it on our own?
They didn't know where to start. Hell, it took a couple of years to even link biotics and Ezo. Forget trying to get the kids to move stuff. They had trouble just helping them not break their own limbs. And their choice of teachers didn't help much.
I'm sure Kinetics did what they thought was best.
It wasn't best for us. They brought in an ex-military Turian named Commander Vernus. A real hard-ass. He basically had a free pass to break us if it would turn out a decent biotic. Kind of spiraled from there, Commander.
Did he ever face charges for that?
He got his, yeah. But like everything else at Jump Zero, it was under the table.
Is the Omega DLC, is that Mass Effect 3?
I walked it off a long time ago. I should get back to my duties, Commander. We're here to make history, not rehash it.
What if I do
Just trying to
looking
get a
for
sense of where the
personal
crew's at.
input again? Is he going to
Thoughts?
talk about his L2?
I've wasted enough of your time for now, Commander.
No.
We'll have time for personal debriefings later.
I haven't played any
talking
of
another
the
time,
DLC for 3 yet. But I hear that at least some of it is really good. Like the Citadel stuff is supposed to be really good. Is there anything back here? No, there's not. Fuck, why did I go back there? Kaiden, yeah. This is the, Oh, I guess this is my room? Oh, shit! Okay, so this is the Miranda room on the SR2, I'm pretty sure. Which I think is significant because she takes the, like, what was your room. Except that I never knew that it was my room because there's no reason to ever go back here in Mass Effect 1. Huh, interesting. Is Kaiden's shirt red? Yeah, poor Kaiden. Okay, so, interesting that he did not push a romance. I don't know if that's because we fucked up the first go-round, or because we told Liara that we weren't interested in him. I don't 100% remember, but it's possible that Mass Effect 1 doesn't have good knowledge modeling for characters in the way that Dragon Age Origins, which came out like a year later, something like that, I think maybe was one of the advancements that they did in that game was a better modeling system for character knowledge. So, you know, you could have a relationship with two characters going on at the same time, and after a while they would sort of grow wise, but there wouldn't be like an automatic when you tell one character I'm interested in you, then all of the other characters back off. Sir Gary says, it's not. Kaiden's romance is significantly more subtle. It's actually really easy to accidentally romance him. That's interesting. And It certainly is. I mean, it doesn't take much to be more subtle than Liara's, which is one of the things that I find charming about Liara, honestly, is that she's so upfront about her interest. Yeah, that must develop much. There's only like 2 more sequences though, right? Because we do Noveria, and then we get to talk to everybody, and then we do Vermeer, and then we get to talk to everybody, and then we do the like end game. And actually, we don't get to talk to everybody after Vermeer, but presumably, if you're romancing Kaiden, then you do. Interesting. So, I mean, there's not a lot more time for that romance to develop, I guess is my point. So it's gotta happen kind of fast, even if it has a slow start.
Why did you become a mercenary?
Lots of reasons.
Such as?
Such as, I needed to get out of our system. I needed to eat. I needed to survive.
Why not stay and help your people?
I tried to help. That's why I had to leave.
What happened?
I was betrayed. I was head of a small tribe. We were trying to restore order after the war, but the other tribes were against us. They followed Jared, one of the few warlords who survived the war with the Turians. But he was old, and so were his ideas. He wanted to continue the war. He wanted us to fight. Turians, Salarians, each other. It didn't matter who, as long as we were fighting.
What did you want?
I just wanted Jared to shut up, to stop his ranting. I wanted him to stop leading the tribes astray. But he couldn't understand how much things had changed. We didn't have the numbers to go to war. Even if we did, the genophage made sure we couldn't replenish our numbers fast enough. I told them all to forget about war. We needed to focus on breeding, at least for one generation. And for a while, we were getting through. Some of the tribes started coming around.
I take it the warlord didn't appreciate that.
No, he didn't. He arranged a crush with the tribes. A meeting on neutral ground. He wanted to talk.
A meeting on neutral ground is called a crush.
Near the graves of our ancestors. The skulls of our dead laid bare to remind us where we come from and where we all go. It's as sacred as any Krogan place can be. Violence is forbidden.
Sounds like a trap to me. You must have suspected as much.
Sounds like a trap to me.
But when your father
Really?
invites you to a crush, well, there are some laws that even we hold sacred.
Jared was your father?
He was, until that day. We talked, but we didn't get anywhere. When it was clear that I wouldn't join him, he gave the signal. His men leapt from the graves of our ancestors like Krogan undead.
Damn.
The few that were loyal to me died quickly. I escaped with my life, but not before I sank my dagger deep into my father's chest. That's
Shakespearean.
And that's why I'll never go back.
What can you tell me about the genophage?
I honestly don't remember how much of this
Ask the
we've already
Salarians
talked
if you
about.
want details. They made it.
I feel like that was...
It makes breeding nearly impossible.
But there was... I didn't get to talk much,
Thousands died
which is
in
weird.
stillbirth, and most never get that far. Every Krogan is infected. Every one. And no one's rushing to find a cure.
You must have family other than your father.
Oh, there we go.
Don't you miss them?
You're trying to make me cry, Shepard. I've got some unfinished
Awkward
business
pause.
with my family. But that's all.
What kind of business?
Before I left, I made an oath to my father's father. I swore to recover my family's battle armor. It was taken from him after the uprising.
What's so important about this armor?
It's a relic. Useless, really. But it was worn by 5 generations of my family before the war. It's rightfully mine. Originally, it was taken by the Turian military. We weren't allowed armor or weapons after the war. Now, it's in the hands of Ton Actus, a Turian scum who collects relics from the war. He's made millions selling Krogan artifacts that were stolen from my people.
So this sounds like
He's got several bases where he stores.
I mean, honestly, this sounds like a loyalty mission from Mass Effect 2.
I just don't know which base has my family's armor.
Just tell me where to start looking.
Which actually makes sense given the plot of Mass Effect for Wrex. I'm curious though,
So long, Wrex.
because I don't really remember this. Do all of the non-romanceable characters have these kinds of
Commander,
missions?
good to see you.
Or is
You've
it
been
just
missing for a
Wrex?
while. Have you seen much action?
Well, not as much as you, but yeah, I've seen some interesting things.
I bet you have. Anything in particular that stands out?
I remember this Solarian geneticist.
I just have 3 crew members, right?
That case was a bit...
I'm pretty sure there's just 6 characters.
What happened? Why were you investigating him?
I was tasked with tracking black market trade on the Citadel. Most of it harmless, nothing I needed to pursue. But during the course of my investigation, I noticed an increase in the trade of body parts, organs mostly. We usually get a few of those, but not the numbers I was seeing. We weren't sure if there was a new black market lab or if some freak was harvesting organs from citizens.
You've seen this before on the Citadel?
Every so often, some lab sells unwanted parts through the black market, but they're not as bad as the psychos. I remember this one L-Corps diplomat we caught in my first year on the job. He was hacking people up and selling their organs, had the station in a bit of a panic. But this case wasn't that clear-cut. Turns out there was more going on than we first realized.
So how did you figure out what was happening?
First, we got a hold of a sample and ran DNA tests. The weird thing was, the match led us to a Turian who was still alive and was very convinced he'd never lost his liver. After a bit of digging, I discovered this Turian worked briefly for Dr. Saleon, the geneticist. So I went to his lab hoping to find evidence of cloned organ development. But there was nothing. No Solarian hearts, no Turian livers, not one Krogan testicle.
You're kidding, right? Why would anyone want Krogan testicles?
Some Krogan believe that testicle
transplants
can increase
Is that such a question?
Counteract the effects of the genophage. It doesn't work, but that doesn't stop them from buying. They'll pay up to 10,000 credits each. That's 40,000 for a full set.
Is it? That was...
That
was a little exposition, right?
What'd you do about the geneticist?
I brought in some of his employees for interrogation to see if I could get them to talk. While I was interviewing one of them, I came across something suspicious.
You mean threatening? Was that really necessary?
Maybe, maybe not. Either way, it paid off. One of my detainees started bleeding profusely during the interview. We offered to patch him up, and he got frantic, freaked out.
One of my detainees started bleeding profusely during the interview.
Our medics found incisions all over his body, some of them fresh. That was our big break. These people weren't just Dr. Saleon's employees. They were test tubes. Walking, living test tubes.
He was growing parts inside these people?
Exactly. He cloned their organs right inside their own bodies. Then he harvested them and sold them off. Most of the victims were poor. He'd pay them each a small percentage of the sales, but only if the organs were good. Sometimes an organ wouldn't grow properly, so he'd just leave it in them. Most of them were a mess, but only on the inside, hidden so nobody could see it.
I hope he got what he deserved.
That's the worst.
That's a good...
Never.
I like that. So there's a lot that can be communicated in the difference between the text as it's presented to the player and the text that Shepard actually says, and I really enjoyed that one.
Why not? What the hell happened?
He ran, blew his lab, grabbed some of his employees, and headed for the nearest space dock. By the time I found out, his ship was already leaving. He threatened to kill his hostages if we tried to stop him.
But you went after him anyway, right?
I ordered Citadel Defense to shoot him down, but CSEC headquarters countermanded my order. They were worried about the hostages, worried about civilian casualties if the ship was destroyed so close to the Citadel. I told them those hostages were dead anyway. He just used them to make more organs. They wouldn't listen.
It's not worth the risk. You pursue the vessel and disable it. That's the best choice.
They sent the military after him, but he got away just the same. Yes, they did. I went to Palin and told him what I thought of him and his policies. He said if I didn't like it, I could quit.
Yes, they did. What was that in reference to?
All they had to
That was
do
a little bit
disable
of
that
broken
ship,
conversation.
Stop him from running. Maybe the hostages die, maybe they don't, but at least we stopped the bastard responsible for it all.
I suppose I can see both sides. But what's done is done.
I suppose. Can't waste too much time worrying about it now. Just wish I could have stopped him. That's all.
Do you have any idea what happened to Dr. Saleon?
I sent out feelers from time to time, hoping to find something. I thought I'd found him a while back. He changed ships and changed his name
Good night,
to Dr.
Eve.
Hart, his idea of a joke, I guess. I told the military, but they weren't convinced it was him. I got the transponder frequency for his new ship, but I just can't get anyone to check it out.
I'll check out the coordinates when I get a chance.
I was hoping you'd say that. But Commander, take me with you when you go. If it's Saleon, I want to be there when you find him.
Oh yeah, right. I gotta remember to take crew members with me. I always buy licenses for that dude, and then I never ever buy anything from him.
Shepard, I'm glad you're here.
Good to see you smiling again, so to speak.
I'm sleeping much better now. I guess I'm getting used to how quiet your ship is. I still think a lot about my pilgrimage, though. I know Steren's our top priority, but with all the worlds we go to, I was hoping to find something to bring back to the flotilla.
We've still got a long way to go. You'll find something to take back.
Yes, but it cannot just be some derelict ship my people can use for salvage. It has to be more than that. There's a lot expected of me.
I love how you can see her eyes through her mask, like just barely. That's such a good effect.
It's my father. He's the senior member of the Admiralty Board. He's one of only 5 people who can overrule the decisions of the Conclave for the good of the migrant fleet. My father is responsible for the lives of 17 million people. Our entire race is in his hands, and I'm his only child.
So are you some kind of heir to the Quarian throne or something?
No, it doesn't work that way. My father's position isn't hereditary. I'll probably never serve on the Admiralty Board myself.
No,
Officially,
Tali?
I'm just the same as any other citizen. But it doesn't work that way in practice. People have always treated me differently because of who my father is.
You must get all kinds of special privileges.
I probably had it easier than most growing up, but it's not all good. People like my father have enemies, and they're not above using me to get to him.
It must be tough on you.
My people place a high value on family and ancestry. There's an unspoken expectation that I'll live up to my father's example. Everyone's waiting for me to do something great on my pilgrimage, something that will forever change our lives for the better. If I don't, it's like I failed, and that reflects badly on both me and my father.
The work you're doing here is more important than anything any Quarian's ever done before.
Yes, I know. But you have to understand Quarian culture. We're a very insular society. The events beyond the flotilla don't much matter to the average citizen. Our greatest dream is that one day we'll return to our homeworld and drive out the gate.
Oh,
But
fantastic.
even if we stop Saren, that's not going to happen. There's still millions of Geth behind the veil. They're gone.
Excuse me.
our exile will continue.
So one opinionated points out in Mass Effect 2, when you meet more Quarians, their accents are more diverse. And I'd like to think that these are Quarians from different regions on Runok, which I think is their home planet. That's a fantastic point. So to some extent, I feel like this game has to stand on its own, and the choice that they made for Talia's accent, has to be, we can interpret it within the context of this game, and we can ascribe significance to it. But I think the fact that then BioWare in the follow-up to this game explicitly mitigate some of the problems that we had with that, and calls attention, I guess, makes a point of recognizing that is also significant.
What would you need to bring back to make everyone happy?
Something that would help us better understand the Geth. They've changed significantly since the exile. They've continued to evolve. We've done our best to study them, but it's not easy. They're very reclusive. Until recently, they never went beyond the borders of the Veil. And all the Geth we run into now are under Saren's control. We'd need to find Geth operating on their own, independently.
Ooh.
But I don't want this to get in the way of our mission, Shepard. First, we stop Saren. Then I'll worry about my own problems.
Does that...
I want to know more about the Geth.
I doubt I can tell you anything you don't already know.
Does that mean
It's been
that
almost 3 centuries since we drove
Tali's
my people
side
into
mission
exile.
doesn't become available
All I
until
know is the
after we
story of
stop
their
Saren,
origins.
or at least make more
What they
progress
were when
towards
we
that
created
end?
them, and how they turned on us.
Because ultimately stopping Saren doesn't happen until the end of the game, but there are sort of like ups and downs in that quest.
Interesting.
The Geth were originally created to serve as an automated manual labor force. Initially, their intelligence was as limited as any VI. Over time, we made small modifications to their programming to allow them to perform more varied and complex tasks, bringing them closer and closer to true AI status.
How come the Council didn't step in and stop you?
This wasn't true AI research. We may have been skirting the bounds of the law, but we never did anything that was actually illegal. The changes were so insignificant, so gradual, that we were able to control them. Or so we thought. But one thing we underestimated was the power of the neural network. 1 million Geth thinking simultaneously created an inherently unstable matrix.
So the Geth share brainpower?
Many of the Geth's logic systems were designed to work in concert with other nearby Geth. Basically, the more of them you have in the group, the smarter they are.
So there's some sort of group consciousness.
No, nothing like that. They cannot share sensory data or information. Their programming cannot handle that much simultaneous input. Each Geth maintains an individual awareness and identity. The neural network only operates on a process-based level. It's basically the synthetic equivalent of a subconscious. But when they're in close proximity, they can coordinate low-level functional processes, freeing up more capacity for original or independent thought.
I don't get it.
That doesn't make any sense.
I'm probably oversimplifying.
Kind of makes sense.
Geth
It
are
makes sense in a
incredibly
like
advanced and
sci-fi
complex
way.
creations. All you need to know is that they get smarter when they gather in large numbers. As we built more and more Geth, their effective intelligence became more sophisticated, more abstract. One day, a Geth began to ask its Quarian overseer questions about the nature of its existence. Am I alive? Why am I here? What is my purpose? As you can imagine, this caused a near panic among my people.
I don't see what's so bad about those questions.
The Geth were created to engage in mundane, repetitive, or dangerous manual labor. That's fine for machines, but it won't satisfy a sentient being for long. The Geth were showing signs of rudimentary self-awareness and independent thought. If the Geth were intelligent, then we were essentially using them as slaves. It was inevitable the newly sentient Geth would rebel against their situation. We knew they would rise up against us, so we acted first. A general order went out across all Quarian-controlled systems to permanently deactivate all Geth. The Geth responded to this order violently.
Hey, you can't blame them for fighting for their survival.
We had no other choice. The Geth were already on the verge of revolution. By acting quickly, we had a chance to end the war before it began. The hope was that most of the Geth would still be little more than machines, incapable of organized
Interesting.
resistance. But they had progressed much further than anyone anticipated. The war was long and bloody. Millions upon millions of Quarians died at their hands. In the end, we were forced to flee our own homeworld. We feared the Geth would pursue us, but they never came beyond the Veil. Now we drift through space, exile, searching for a way to reclaim what was once ours.
So is the Quarian story fundamentally about a like first strike capability, the abuse of that power? I mean, certainly the whole story of the Geth is like, fraught with questions about artificial intelligence and consciousness, and I think it does a reasonable job of tackling questions that sci-fi literature has tackled a million times. But there's something about the Quarians and the state that they find themselves in this sort of species-wide exile, essentially, based on sort of what happens, based on their history, based on losing the war with the Geth, and this idea that they have an attitude that that treats the Geth that continually underestimates the intelligence, the coordination, and the humanity that the Geth possess. And their sort of first strike doctrine is based on the idea that the Geth probably aren't coordinated enough. They're not smart enough to respond. And so, we can shut them all down before they have a chance to revolt. But in fact, it just exacerbates the problem. And the first Geth to demonstrate intelligence didn't attack its overseer. It started asking questions about its existence, which, if you take a step back, if you don't react emotionally to that, seems like there's a potential for cooperation. Right, that a peace could be reached between them. Now, that's not necessarily what the Quarians would want, even if they thought that was possible, but it's presented, from Tali at least, that didn't even seem like a possibility to them, that they were so freaked out by the idea that the Geth had achieved consciousness that, they reacted to that. And their reaction to that seems to have, spiraled things out of control. And I think that a lot of the Quarian interactions with the Geth in this series from here forward follow a very similar path. The Geth want to take actions that treat the... I don't know if I said that. The Quarians want to take actions that treat the Geth as robots, that they want to destroy them, whereas in my playthroughs, because I go Paragon, a lot of what I'm doing is trying to broker a compromise between them. There's also sort of a slavery question. There's a slavery element to it. Dr. Darkheart points out their whole society is seemingly built upon the backs of the Geth, which is an interesting sort of thing to consider, especially if you wonder sort of at what point did the Geth achieve sentience? Can they properly be considered slaves before that? That is an interesting question. I don't know how much the game actually explores that. And then also it deals in later games. It deals a lot with the questions of like displacement. The Quarians are people who have a homeland that they have been exiled from, and they want it back. Yeah, so, Sergari, how much of that could be influenced by what will the rest of the galaxy think when they find out we've created AI? Absolutely. Like, their reaction is contextual, right? It's not just like, holy shit, we created a sentient creature. It's also, like, that's taboo. So they're not even, they're not thinking about it logically. They're not thinking about, somebody pointed out, like, Connor Frown said that they've created another intelligent species that will be competing with them for the same resources because they're on the same planet. But it's not even that. They're not, like, thinking about it that rationally. They're sort of in a culture, this galactic culture where AI is taboo. And so as soon as they create AI, they sort of panic about that. Okay, Rotopenguin, this is the question that I have. Where does this anti-AI more really come from? How are the values of a restarted galaxy set between reapings? Because we will find out in later game, or at the end of this game, that the galaxy is on this sort of, periodic cycle where that pits organic versus synthetic life against each other. And so it makes sense that, the galaxy has this tension between organic beings and machines like the Geth, and that there are biases, that there are taboos against AI research, because ultimately that's fundamental to this tension. But that tension, like that conflict, doesn't really express itself except on this like large periodic scale, the reapings. And so I'm really curious, like, what happened in the history of this galactic civilization? The Asari and the Turians and the Quarians and the humans and Salarians, like those groups. What happened to create a culture where AI research is already distrusted before the Geth come up? There must be something. Like, something must have caused that. And it seems really unlikely that it is the product of the reaping, because the whole point of the reaping is that history is lost in between reapings. So I don't think it's about I don't know. I'm really curious. I don't know that the game ever really answers that question. Now we drift through space exile, searching for a way to reclaim what was once ours.
It's hard to feel sorry for you. Your ancestors tried to wipe out another species.
We made a mistake when we created the Geth in the first place, but we did not make a mistake when we went to war against them. If we had not acted, they would have wiped us out. They're a synthetic life form. They have no use for organics. None. Why do you think they cut themselves off from the rest of the galaxy? Why do you think they've killed every organic being who's ever tried to contact them?
Sergari asks if there needs to be a pivotal event to create that sort of attitude. Terminator isn't based on anything real. But I would also argue, like, if we're looking at our culture as like a prototype for this galactic civilization, Terminator expresses a sort of latent fear about technology, but it doesn't do so in a way that actually manifests in a significant way in our technology development. AI research is a huge field, and people are not like technologists are not wary of creating true AI. Technologists are extremely excited about the prospect of creating true AI. Yes, there are undercurrents in culture, especially in literature, that express that tension, but not anywhere near the point where it would actually prohibit or curb the development of those technologies. And so the fact that there's presumably, I mean, they reference a prohibition of AI research, that suggests to me that there has been some kind of an incident, because in my experience of, certainly the human condition and this game, like the civilization in this game seems pretty closely modeled after that. That just doesn't happen. We don't stop progress based on those kinds of like general non-specific fears. We create social values around things that went horribly wrong.
They didn't kill Saren.
What does that tell you? The Geth are not innocent victims in all this. They're the enemy. They want to destroy us. Not just the Quarians. All organic life. That's why they've joined up with Saren. And that's why we have to stop him.
What was your father like?
It wasn't easy growing up as the daughter of one of the Admiralty. Even before he joined the board, he was a prominent figure. People looked to him for leadership. He had to set an example, and he expected the same of his daughter. Plus, he was pretty strict, a military man through and through. He never allowed me to settle for anything less than excellence. As a kid, I sometimes felt like he was pushing me too hard. But now, I'm old enough to appreciate what he taught me. The world doesn't owe us anything. If we want something in life, we have to earn it.
Okay, a couple things. Rotopenguin notes that we have sure as hell stopped progress around nuclear power, but I attribute that as a direct result to 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl. I feel like if those incidents had not occurred, then the sort of the fear around nuclear power as an environmental hazard would not exist in like nearly the way that it does now. And even then, I think we're getting over it. My sense is that nuclear power is on the upkick again. Like it's becoming more popular. That said, it is still like seriously stalled and has been for quite a while. But we're talking on a galactic level. We're talking about like, hundreds and thousands of years. Like that's a lot of time for people to get over qualms. That's honestly a long time for people to get over like reactions to disastrous incidents. So the fact that there's an all-out ban on AI research suggests to me that like something really, really bad went down. One opinionated says you can hear the panic in Tali's voice as she talks about the Geth. Yeah, 100%. The voice acting in this game is super good.
Where was your mother in all this?
Mother was around, but she always seemed to kind of blend into the background. Almost like she was overshadowed by my father. He tends to do that to people. She passed on about 5 years ago. Some airborne virus that swept through the fleet. Happens sometimes when the filters start to break down. I think my father took it pretty hard. After she was gone, he became even more focused on his work. I think that was his way of dealing with the grief.
Sounds like a tough upbringing. You don't resent your father at all?
Like I said, it wasn't easy. My father's not the kind of person you bond with, and he wasn't around all that much. Too busy. People counted on him, and he took his duties seriously, even when he was around.
I love Tali, and I find the Quarians super interesting, but Jesus Christ, she talks a lot.
I can't ever remember seeing him smile.
Like, there's an enormous amount of written content in the Tali conversations, as opposed to, like, the Kaiden conversations.
I mean, I know he cares about me, but he never really showed it. Not in the usual way. I guess the best thing I can say about my father is that I respect him.
I want to talk about something else.
Like what?
I wonder how this game was written. I wonder if different writers took on different characters specifically. If the person who wrote Kaiden, or at least, you know, the primary writer for that storyline is different from the person who wrote Tali, and if that has something to do with the style of how the style of conversation is quite different, or if that's intended to be, I mean, and or if that's intended to be explicitly part of her character.
I want to know more about the pilgrimage.
When my people reach maturity, we leave our birth ships and seek acceptance with a new crew.
Yeah, okay, so, and then one opinionated points out, I'm just talking over her, sorry. One opinion points out that
someone who will be a burden on them.
Tali represents this conflict between organics and synthetics, and that is core and fundamental to the series as a whole. Like, that is the fundamental conflict that the game keeps coming back to. That the series keeps coming back to. That the game will eventually come to, and then the series will return to.
Can a captain choose to reject the gift?
That doesn't happen often. Most captains are eager to increase the size of their crew. It increases their own standing in our society. Even when a gift is not particularly valuable, the captain usually accepts it out of a sense of tradition. However, there is a stigma to presenting a substandard gift. It's not the best way to make a good impression on a new community. Most pilgrims don't return until they find something worthwhile.
LG Scoundrel points out that there must have been delegation in the writing because there's so much content, which I completely agree with. But I don't know that it's necessarily the case that that delegation would have happened on a per character basis. It's likely that it happens on a based on narrative. So quest lines were probably delegated out to different people, which maybe is characters would fall into that category, but I could also see the no, not really. Yeah, it would probably, it would make the most sense for it to be split between characters. So yeah, that makes sense.
I want to talk about something else.
Like what?
I think I'm good, Tali.
See you later.
Something I can do for you, Commander?
Nope.
Carry on, Adams.
Aye, aye, Commander.
Commander?
Megaria has some insight. It looks like, from what I've heard, the BioWare writers say there's one or two writers who write most of a few characters' dialogue to go along with the lead writer's ideas, and then they tweak as needed, which sounds kind of like how how I understand a lot of TV writing happens, that there's a lead writer for each episode who basically does a draft. Like they'll break the story together, and then somebody will do a draft, and then there will be a lot of collaborative work. Maybe that's different. Maybe that's not at all what I'm talking about. Maybe it's more along the lines of there's a lead writer on the TV series who will sort of have a vision for the season, and then collaboratively they'll break each episode, but a writer will go off and write each episode. And I guess that's the model that I'm thinking of, that you don't necessarily have writers who specialize in individual characters, although that can happen a little bit. You've got character Bibles that all of the writers can kind of refer to in order to write all of the characters, and each writer, the writer who writes each episode is mostly writing all of that episode. Whereas I think the way that this is delegated, it makes sense that it's in a similar way, I would think that you would delegate out coherent narrative chunks, quest lines, or romance plots, or the conversation that you have with Liara that spans the entire game, or arcs. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Can we talk?
Do you have a few minutes to talk? One-on-one?
Sure. I was just watching some mail from home.
Oh, before I go, we saw Kaiden in a news vid about the Normandy. He's cute. Later, sis.
Let's pretend this never happened.
Are you interested in the lieutenant, Chief?
Fraternization is against regulations, ma'am. Don't ask, don't tell. What's up? You didn't come by to eavesdrop on family.
Is that what don't ask, don't tell means? That seems like a loaded term to...
Your family seems to be important to you.
Yeah, we've always been close. Me and my sisters especially. With Dad on duty so much, I had to help Mom raise them.
Captain Aramis, sorry, I'm reading the chat log. Captain Aramis points out that like each of the characters, and this is a really interesting thing. Each of the characters sort of has a part of the lore that they are expert on, that you can talk to them about. And I think the one that's the least clear to me actually is Ashley. I think Ashley's section of the lore is the human military, because she comes from a military family. Kaiden's is biotics, and then all of the alien species sort of are experts on their own, culture. My point is that yes, you can engage Kaiden about biotics, and he will tell you stuff, and he has quite a lot to say, but just the volume, the quantity of dialogue that is available in that conversation is significantly less than if you talk to Tali. There's a discrepancy in how much text is in that conversation. Let's just go through them.
With the fleet?
Yeah. Took any crap posting he could get that offered space time. You know what? He worked his ass off trying to get recognized, but he never made it above serviceman 3rd class. He was real proud when I made Chief. First thing he did was salute.
Oh, that's
What about your mother? You haven't mentioned her.
touching.
You must know what military wives are like. Strong because they have to be, able to raise kids while dad's away on a 6-month cruise. She has a degree in planetary geology. She and dad both wanted to see new worlds. She gave up her career to raise us, though.
You have more than one sister? Sounds like a big family.
Yeah, I'm the oldest, then Abby, then Lynn. Sarah's the youngest. She's still in high school. With 4 girls, Dad used to say he felt more outnumbered at home than on maneuvers.
Where did you grow up?
When she's not talking about how terrible aliens are, she's like really,
half a dozen times before I finished grade school. You go where personnel command sends
you know, very
right?
human, very
I guess
connecting.
that's why I'm so tight with my sisters. We'd have to leave all our friends every 2 or 3 years.
I always thought Kaiden never shut up when I talked to him, LOL. Yeah, well, that's because Kaiden, motherfucker, you know. But it's not word count. It's just fucking Kaiden.
Where did you grow up?
Did I just ask this? I
Same
forget.
as you expect. We transferred a half a dozen times before I finished grade school. You go where personnel command sends you, right? I guess that's why I'm so tight with my sisters. We'd have to leave all our friends every 2 or 3 years.
I was an only child, but I get the idea. At least one of my parents was always on duty.
Yeah, military families, eh? With schedules like that, it's a wonder we ever have kids anymore. Things were tense between Sarah and me for a while. Then we bonded.
Sounds like a story. Feel like sharing?
Sarah got herself a boyfriend who wanted to go faster than she did, Mike. I didn't think he was a bad kid, just pushy. Lynn would send me these worried vid mails, and I'd tell her to relax.
The Normandy crash site DLC in Mass Effect 2 is one of the best things ever committed to digital media. It's fantastic.
Where were you when this was going on?
I was on active duty. Sarah's graduating high school this year. This was only a couple of years back. They were on Amaterasu. At the time, I was assigned to Chernobog. Same cluster, but a dozen Hellwire away. Close enough to talk regularly, too far to make it back in an emergency. I couldn't afford a fast packet flight.
If he really liked her, he wouldn't be pushy.
Yeah, of course. If he didn't ask at all, I'd wonder if he thought Sarah was ugly. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. Mike thought they'd go for a romantic walk in the woods.
Okay.
He figured it was past time they did the deed. She levered Mike face first into a tree and left. Didn't have a scratch on her. Good thing Mom and Dad had us all learn some kind of self-defense. I took emergency leave and walked Sarah to school for a few days.
Why didn't you tell the police?
She said it wouldn't solve the real problem, and she and Mike would both become household names. It was a small colony. I said it was her call to make, that we should let her do it her way. Mom was pretty pissed about that.
You said all of your sisters learned self-defense?
Lynn did pistol practice, but didn't like it. She's kind of nervous. Sarah took Aikido. Abby decided to learn the sword. She always was a little weird. Likes big skirts and tops you have to tie her into. They do great things to her figure, though.
So, what did you learn?
One of Dad's friends taught me Marine hand-to-hand.
You traveled all the way home to walk your sister to school.
It was only a dozen light years, like a day's cruise. It's not like I was going to Earth or something. My last day out, Mike was waiting for us. Sarah had told her friends, so everyone at school knew what he did. He wasn't happy. I wanted to snap him in half, but Sarah gave me this look, this let me handle it, I need to do this alone look. She kept her cool, God bless her, as he screamed in her face. She just let him vent. Then he tried to punch her. I swear, she just flowed around him. Next thing I knew, he's face down on the sidewalk, and there's blood everywhere.
That's unbelievable. Sarah must be as good as you.
Better. I'm more or less a straight-up puncher. When he swung, she wasn't there anymore, and he fell. She helped him stop the bleeding and had me call an ambulance. She told the paramedics he fell. Before they took him to the hospital, Mike touched Sarah's arm. I thought he was gonna end up on the ground again. But he hung his head, whispered, "I'm sorry," and started crying. And she hugged him. The Williams women are a decisive bunch, Commander. We do things when we're ready. Not before, not after.
God, that is such a complicated story. I mean, like, I have such a complicated response to that story.
Your sister's something else. But you didn't mention your father at all. Was he on deployment?
Dad always wanted to serve in space, but he wanted us to have real ground under our feet. He'd say, space is beautiful, but you can't raise a family there. I cannot rest from travel. I will drink life to the lees. All times I've enjoyed greatly, have suffered greatly, both with those that loved me and alone. For always roaming with a hungry heart, much have I seen and known, cities of men and manners, climates, councils, governments.
I didn't know you liked classical literature.
Ulysses was my dad's favorite poem. Every time he shipped out, he recorded me reading it. He had a dozen versions when he retired.
Does he still like it?
I sure hope so. I read it to his grave every time I go home. Dad passed on a few years back. He's probably still watching, though.
We're talking, the chat is now talking about characters that they lost in the climax of Mass Effect 2, which is an amazing, the way that game is structured is super interesting, and a lot of it is really kind of boring. It's like fun to play as a game, but narratively extremely boring. But the climax is fantastic, and you lose a lot of characters, or you have the potential to. In my, last canonical playthrough, the only time that I have played through Mass Effect 3, I lost Mordin, and so I've never played Mass Effect 3 with Mordin, which is sacrilegious. But so it goes.
You mean from wherever we go after death?
Dead on, Skipper. He's with God now. That's not a problem with you, is it? That I believe in God?
Everyone has the right to believe what they want. It says so in the Alliance Charter, only with fancier words.
I'm glad you're open-minded about it. I've met a few people who are really weirded out by my faith. Because I work in space, I can't believe in a higher power? Jeez. Hello, have you people looked out the window? How can you look at this galaxy and not believe in something? I should get back to my duties. Didn't mean to take up so much of your time.
What's your opinion of the last mission?
Gotta admire those colonials. That's about the worst place for a colony I've ever seen. Given the option, I'd get the hell out of Dodge.
Magaria, the replacement character that you get in Mass Effect 3, the substitute Mordin, I actually found also really, really affecting. But obviously it wasn't Mordin. But I like playing sad games, so I think that's my jam.
Dismissed, Chief.
Ma'am.
Okay, we talked to everybody except for Joker. Let's go talk to Joker. I can't remember. No, how do I... at some point, Joker runs out of things to say, and I can't remember when it is. Yeah, I think that the replacement Salarian you get in Mass Effect 3 serves a role that is very, very, very close to the role that Mordin serves if you have him. I'm sure that the dialogue is at least somewhat different, but it's very close.
Hey, Commander, next time we touch down, let's try not to park the ship in a colony of mutant zombies. Just thinking out loud here.
Is that all you got, though, Joker?
How's the Normandy performing? Is she everything they said she'd be?
She's the best ship in the fleet, if you've got a pilot who knows how to handle her. Balance isn't what you'd expect. Takes a while to get used to that oversized drive core we got stuffed in the back, and her power can sneak up on you if you're not careful. The Normandy's probably too much ship for your average Alliance pilot, Commander. Lucky for you, I'm anything but average.
I have to go.
That doesn't look like any new content. Seth Green's Alright, See You is one of my favorite readings in this whole game. Alright, cool, guys. That was fun. That's it for me. I'm gonna go to bed. And we'll play Noveria sometime, maybe? I don't know if I can go through the whole trilogy like this, but let's at least see if we can finish this game. Cool. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'll see you next time. Have a great night. Oh, God damn it. Every time.